it's Cat Lover. As a Sonic fan, I'm used to being let down and disappointed by the games, but I still love them anyway and give them a fair shot. So when Sonic X Shadow Generations came out, I knew I had to drop everything to play it. Yes, I did get this game early on the 22nd. Yes, I did temporarily neglect my education just for a Sonic game. Just to preface, I've never played Sonic Generations. Yeah, I've only ever played a level or two before this, and I'll definitely be talking about my experience with it later. Trust me, I have a lot to say about it. I'll only be discussing Shadow section in Sonic X Shadow Generations, and let me just say, oh my gosh! I love this game so much! The hype was 100% warranted, and I thought people were jumping the gun by calling it the best 3D Sonic title, but lo and behold, it is. This is what I've been waiting for. This is what I dropped forces to play. This is one of the greatest Sonic games ever. Alright, enough lazing, let's get started. The gameplay for Shadow is the most fun 3D Sonic has been, in my opinion. The controls are snappy, there's so much for you to do yet it doesn't feel overwhelming, and more importantly, it works. I haven't played a new Sonic game in a while that's felt this snappy and fun to play, but then again I have to get around to playing Frontier, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. Shadow moves a lot like Sonic does in base generations, boosting, stomping, homing, attacking, and so on, but he has his own base abilities. You really get to see the parallels between Sonic and Shadow and that they complement each other very well. You're able to use Chaos Control, something I was really excited to see and use. In the game, it gets some use in the missions and some levels, but it's built around absolutely everything. It's super cool that it stops the actual game timer though. The Chaos Spear also sees a lot of use, as Shadow can use Chaos Energy to send electricity at enemies, stunning them. I can't state how natural and fun all these abilities are to use, and though none of them are new, it never feels like you don't get any use out of them. The real meat of Shadow are the Doom abilities, and they're so badass to use. Throughout the game, you'll unlock Doom abilities after defeating bosses and getting the gear required to unlock Doom devices. Listen, if Shadow didn't already prove how much of a threat he was, he definitely does in this game. There are 5 Doom abilities, each of them making Shadow look more and more like an OC, and I was eating it up like a starving Victorian child in the presence of unattended bread. Doom Spears allow you to lock onto 5 devices or enemies and send spears their way. It's usually good for stunning enemies and getting them out of the way or pressing switches in the environment. Doom Blast is much more situational, but badass. Okay, you're gonna hear me say that word a lot, I'm sorry. This ability allows you to send an enemy upwards, choose the direction you want to kick them in, and teleports you to where they land. Again, situational, only allow with specific enemies, but can help you clear large areas and missions quicker. Doom Surf is like a surfboard, activating only when you hit water. I was expecting the controls here to be a little finicky, but I was pleasantly surprised that I actually had the most fun with it. You can quickly dash right or left to knock things out of the way, and I can't explain how satisfying it feels. This ability of the Doom Morph, well, it just makes me feel like I'm playing Splatoon, but a lot faster and creepier. You can only use it in these mucky areas to swim through it, but you can also use Morph to homing attack and swing around. It can sometimes feel too slow without boosting and too fast when you are, but it's still quite seamless, just takes some getting used to. Last but not least, the Doom Wing. Since you can't go super in this game, which is kind of a bummer but I understand from a story point of view, you get this ability. Shadow grows wings and you can fly through the levels of Hub World all with ease. Since it's a pseudo super form, you can only activate it with 50 rings and your ring count will deplete while using it. This ability makes the levels you use them in so much fun. Maybe a little more intense once you've just gotten it, but I like a good challenge. Doom abilities are usually only used in specific parts of levels or bosses, but it was never supposed to be a permanent thing anyway, so it's fine. Literally, the only nitpick I have is that some of the later abilities take a bit to get used to, but then again, I imagine that's how it's supposed to feel. All of the Doom abilities are really unique and only solidify that Shadow is full of infinite possibilities, maybe some of which can be explored later on. All the abilities, Doom or not, and how they control make the game insanely good for speedrunning. I never cared too much for speedrunning outside of 2D Sonic, so it's unexpected for me to strive for it here, and this game really does make me feel bad for whoever Shadow is fighting. It's already bad enough seeing Sonic, I can't imagine seeing Shadow. In short, he's pretty much a menace the entire game, and I love him like that. Gameplay was top notch in Shadow, and it made me happy to be a Sonic fan, shocker. So let's move on to the level design. The levels in Shadow are too much fun. Regular levels are recycled somewhere from older Sonic titles such as Radical Highway and the Space Colony Arc. Act 1 is typically 3D, while Act 2 is 2D. There really is a lot going for 3D and 2D Sonic fans, and I think Shadow handles both very well. I'm a classic fan, so I expected to only like the 2D stages, but I fell in love with the 3D stages too. I guess that's what happens when you make a good game. Level design isn't hostile or awkward, and you can basically zoom through any level if you have the means and the skills. For a bit, it had gotten kinda hard to find a Sonic game that rewards speed and has a level design to match it, so I really like the levels here. I really wish most of them hadn't been spoiled in trailers or teasers, and the same goes for the bosses, but I was still super happy to see them. Missions are back and are super unique to the ones that you'll find in base gens. Some are just you getting to the goal in time, and I'd have so much fun playing the missions I sometimes forget the objective. Though it's not hard to get good ranks in most levels, I found myself dying when I got too comfortable, so focus is still very important. Some of these levels, such as the very last one, will really test you, especially if you're not using the Doom abilities built for them. Some levels aren't too convenient when you're not using certain abilities, which is fair. For example, if you don't use the Doom wing too much in this level, chances are you'll die at least once. Moving on, the levels look like downright unbelievable. The colors are vibrant enough to wow you and still dark enough not to blind you, like the Space Colony arc. Even the hub world looks and feels alive, with so much to do and play around with as you travel to your next destination. I'm really glad that even while not playing a level, there's still a lot of thought being put into where you need to go or what you need to do. The hub world requires you to use your Doom abilities a lot of the time to get to new areas, and it feels kinda Metroidy, so I love that. Only nitpick I have overall is that there are areas and levels where you can't continue on that path until you've defeated all the enemies in a room. Feels kinda awkward, but not bad at all, so like I said, just a nitpick. Off note, but the music really helped me immerse myself into the levels too. Most of the music in general had me levitating, like hearing All Hail Shadow and the final boss or supporting me in the Bio-Lizard fight. Hearing the songs play in-game was such an out-of-body experience, most of the time. Levels are the real meat of Sonic games, so I'm happy they exceeded my expectations. So, let's talk about the bosses now. The bosses in Shadow are all reused villains, sure, but does that make them any less badass and fun to beat? Hell no. Instead of standing around waiting for something to happen, or playing a kind of forgettable boss, each one of them makes their mark one way or the other. Each boss has a using abilities you unlock beforehand, each of them are kind of their own grand threat. The Bio-Lizard is a tortured creation, so taking it down is kinda sad, but do you think that's ever stopped anybody? Metal Overlord isn't very hard at all. He does that cliche stop hitting yourself, but I love his design and the use of the Doom Surf here. Mephiles is here, and honestly it's been a while since I've seen him, so I'm glad he's here. Back at it again with an existential crisis. This boss fight challenged me a bit since it took me a bit to get used to the Doom morph, but playing it again gave me some clarity. It's good to see Sonic 06 get mentioned, even if it's like, really bad.
Oh, no, stay back!
Wait, where'd you get that piano?
But I like that they're at least acknowledging it again. Devil Doom was a bit underwhelming as a boss, but I don't think the boss fight in itself was the main appeal. The vibes were right in this fight. Seeing Shadow flying after Black Doom as the latter praises him for his abilities and works harder to take over him is sick. It's even cooler that Shadow beats his ass too. After Shadow defeats him and says goodbye to Maria and Gerald, there's a more somber tone towards the end that you feel like you worked for. All threats are eliminated, Shadow got some closure and was able to emotionally mature from the situation by working hard for it, and the bosses only solidified that notion. Though none of them were exactly difficult, their presentation and impact was a lot more important anyway. Besides, you can always go back with other abilities to retry these fights on higher difficulty, so that's cool. So, let's talk about the story now. The story of Sonic games are usually pretty distracting or nothing burgers, but we got so much out of this game alone. Shadow goes and does his own thing, as you see at the end of Dark Beginnings, and gets stuck in his own messed up time warp. Here he has to find many shadows of his past, and then one still haunting his existence, Black Doom. I gotta say, Shadow's got some serious daddy issues, holy shit. But yeah, this game really does help bring out the best qualities in Shadow. I really like this characterization of him. He's emotional but not edgy, brooding but not outright mean, and cold but not exactly aggressive. Serious props to the writer for representing him well. Shadow is also super expressive in this game, and I cannot stress how happy I was to see him get more than one expression. I complained before that Sonic games didn't have their characters look too expressive anymore, but I totally take it back. Through the dialogue, you can hear that Shadow is just as cocky as Sonic, much like how he was in SA2. He's also pretty brutal in his delivery. Do you see what he says to Mephiles?
There is no future for you. Ever.
Even so, he shows the softer side too. I like how empathetic he is towards the Bio-Lizard as he gently murders it again, and the encounters between Shadow and Maria are very sweet, as always. It's a lot more implied that they both support and protect each other in differing ways, as it's only Maria who's able to help Shadow let go of his destructive anger. Just makes me even sadder knowing what's going to happen to her in the Sonic 3 movie. Seeing Gerald always makes me think of this image, but it also makes me kinda sad at what his fate is. Everyone talks about Maria, which makes sense because she's a little girl who got killed, but the game adds more to the relationship between her and her grandfather. Like I said, it makes this shit 100 times more devastating, and you can tell Shadow feels it. At least he's got the means though, because he destroys absolutely every single person he comes across, Black Doom especially. You can really feel Shadow's pain, rage, and grief, and all of it is portrayed with transparency and tact. I couldn't ask for a better interpretation of his character. Now let's wrap it up. Shadow is a very well done game and is one of the best games in the Sonic series. Not only does the game live up to the famous name of Sonic, but it's extremely fun and creative while paying respect to the past. Despite a lot of reused themes, bosses, and levels, nothing ever felt dull or uncreative. Everything was unique and as new as it could be, and I'm pleasantly surprised because my expectations were super high and I still got blown away. It's the best 3D Sonic title, and one of the best in general, and even though I can't fairly compare it to the classic games, it scratches some itches that the classic games just don't. The only disappointing thing is I know when I go back to play the other 3D titles, I'm gonna feel really let down. I can only wish that Shadow was longer, but I have faith I'll see something this good again soon. Guys, Sonic might be back. It's a bit shocking to say that so confidently. I made it a point to finish this game ASAP so I could go back and replay some things, get some clarity, and perfect my scores. I don't do that with many Sonic games, so I guess you could say this game really did it for me. And of course I had to get some stuff off my chest and make a video way earlier than I was supposed to. Oops. This really is the year of Shadow, so I know Sonic fans are eating really good. We've only been waiting forever for a game like this, so I think we deserved it. What do you think? Let me know. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'm Cat Lover. It's been real. Peace.